Leap is a full stack developer agent that can create applications with both front ends and back ends. And it can also deploy these to your own cloud on Google Cloud or AWS. And we're going to take a look at how it works and how you can build real applications with it very quickly. So similar to other application creators, you start from a prompt. And what's maybe different from what you're used to is you can use this to actually describe the infrastructure or application architecture that you would like as part of your design, because Leap can build any sort of architecture that you have in mind. You can use a monolith with sort of a backend and a front end architecture, or you can build a microservices system, and you can even build a event-driven system using PubSub. And this is all powered by the encore.ts open source framework under the hood. And that's an open source framework that we built that has 10,000 stars on GitHub and is used by thousands of developers today. And the key feature in Encore is that it enables declarative infrastructure. And I'll show you what that is once we build our first app. So let's jump in. I'm actually just going to click one of these examples. So let's build a simple CRM system to start. And we can see it just populated the prompt and it only described the product here that we're building. And it started to generate code. And Leap uses Claude 4 for code generation currently. And as you can see, it started with the backend and it created our first service, a CRM service, and the database migrations for that. And then it's basically creating sort of a CRUD setup here in TypeScript using encore.ts. And here's an example of what you can do when you use encore.ts. So if you're importing here the API function from the Encore dev package, you can then basically use this function to tell Encore that this is supposed to be a publicly exposed API endpoint. And you're basically turning a regular TypeScript function into an API. And what Encore does is it uses static analysis to parse your uses of the framework to then translate this into reality and set up the infrastructure you need accordingly. Similarly, if we look at here, we're importing the SQL database function, and we're with this able to create the database. So when Encore parses this, it understands it needs to set up a SQL database. So Encore currently supports Postgres databases. And then once you deploy, this gets translated to a real database. And as you can see here, you're not putting any specific configuration in place. Rather, that happens after you deploy. So if you want to self-host this, you can export the code via GitHub. You can then use the open source Encore tooling to create a set of Docker images from your application and then configure them to run on the infrastructure you want. And you can go to encore.dev and check out all of the docs for that. There's also a built-in integration with Encore Cloud, which is our cloud automation platform. And that gives you a few different options. You can either deploy to a free development environment hosted by Encore Cloud just by clicking deploy, or you can also connect your either AWS or GCP account and then create an environment on your own cloud, and Encore Cloud will take care of orchestrating the infrastructure and the deployment there, including all underlying services and resources that you need, like IAM policies and security groups. And when you create an environment, I haven't connected my account here so I can show you, but when you create an environment, you can choose which infrastructure you want to use. So either Kubernetes or Fargate and things like that. And now our first application is complete. So we have our little CRM system. And down here we can see the logs, and we can see that this front end is actually calling our backend endpoints to populate this. If we go into contacts, you can see if we can add a contact. Leaking my private information, that's fine. So that was created, and this is all updated, and we can see it's working. So that's great. And we can look at the architecture view, which shows we have our single service. It has 15 public endpoints and a database. In the infrastructure view, we can see what we're using. So it's right now it's basically the same. We can see here other types of infrastructure that Leap supports. And then lastly, going over to the service catalog here, we can see all of our endpoints, and we can click into them, and we can basically see the documentation, and we can even call them from here using our API Explorer. We can also jump straight to the code and see where this is defined. And now that we've made our first change, we could continue prompting here to ask Leap to make further changes. Maybe we want to spice up the UI, make it a little more colorful. Let's see what that does. You can also go in and make manual code changes if you want. That's totally fine. You can also go in here and see your application structure and do code search, etc. And what's going on over here, when we made our first prompt, you can see it created an ongoing change. And what that means is you can think of it as a branch, and then each subsequent revision within that is like a commit in Git terminology. And then once we're done with this ongoing change, and we're happy with what we've done, we can click merge and that will save it. And that's like merging a pull request. And this gives you as a developer control over how much context is being fed into the LLM. What makes Leap quite good at code generation is that we feed in context from the ongoing change. So it knows what it's done previously here. And then we recommend that you merge changes whenever you're done with sort of an atomic feature or a change you're sort of happy with. You can merge that and start a new change. And that means you optimize how much context we're feeding into the LLM, so tokens last longer and the performance gets better. And you can see here, as we asked it to change the UI to make it more colorful, it's going in and changing the files in the front end. And we can go in and we can view the diff to see exactly what it's changing, make sure it looks fine. Yeah, it's adding purple and green and orange. I'm sure this is going to look interesting. So with this, you're in full control of the changes that the AI is making for you. And once it's done, that's going to trigger a new build and it will update this preview environment. So this link here, you can open it in a new tab to check it out. And this is running on a sort of self-contained VM on using Firecracker on a machine that we're running for Leap. And then once you deploy either through here or by self-hosting it, then that's where your persistent sort of environment will be. So this means even though it's an AI-powered tool, you can have the same sort of robust workflow that you're used to, and you can work with multiple environments. You can create staging and test environments, and you can integrate it with GitHub to have a real solid workflow. So here we go. It definitely spiced it up. I'm not sure if this is better or worse, but let's go with it. So let's merge this change. And what you can see here is now we've merged the change, so we're ready. We could deploy this. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to hit deploy. And now that's started the deployment process. If we click over here, we jump over to the Encore Cloud platform where we can see it's starting a build and we get build logs. We'll see it start spinning up infrastructure here soon. And over here in Encore Cloud is basically where you have access to a whole bunch of tools. The same tools we looked at within Leap, like the service catalog and code viewing and architecture diagrams, you will get for your cloud environment just out of the box. And you'll also get distributed tracing out of the box. And if you deploy it to your cloud account, you'll get cost analytics as well. But jumping back to Leap, we can see here that now that we finished our first change, we actually get a bunch of suggestions for what to do next. So this is a good way of either coming up with what to build, or equally we could just prompt it here to continue our development. And we have designed this for developers who want more control than they get with other tools. And that means control over your code. So you own your code from day one. You can change it whenever you like. You don't need to pay for that feature. You can put it in your GitHub account from day one. You don't need to pay for that feature. And once you deploy, you have control of your own infrastructure. You're not tied to a backend as a service platform. You can put it in your AWS. You can put it in your GCP, or you can self-host it wherever you like. So you're in full control of both your code and your cloud, basically. And we think this tool is really powerful when you're building new applications, so perfect for startups or indie hackers, but equally for teams in a larger organization who may be starting a new project. And given that you can deploy to an existing cloud environment, say in your Google Cloud, we think that really helps teams move a lot faster. But there's still limits to what AI can do today, and that's why having this GitHub integration is really powerful, because then you can take your code and continue working on it in your normal IDE. And you can then, if you're using Encore Cloud, for instance, you can still continue using that and continue deploying to the same environment. So there's no harsh graduation point. You can just continue working as you would expect. We hope you check it out. We want to see what you're building and we want to hear your feedback. So if you go into the menu here and click help, that's a link to our Discord, and we hope to see you there. Have a lot of fun. See you.